nationalized, you do not operate under the black codes. Any controversy would be a cultural venue. That is a political venue. And any venue where controversy is held between people of different nation states would be a cultural venue. And that's a fact.
Thank you for that. Here, Curtis Jones says, I've read and I think he was referred to Noble Drew Ali, had a lot to do with nation/state as well. When he died, the Vatican was the first, in quotes, to start right after using Drew Ali's groundwork.
Yeah. Well, of course, the major issue is this is why people need to know the history. That's like when we came into this, because we can't go through all of it. I say study the Napoleonic Wars from 1803 to 1815, because when they're teaching history of America, they do not include the Napoleonic Wars because they don't want people to tie back to Iberia, because you know that Iberia is Europe. Then when you know Iberia, then you trace back to Phoenicia, Nefertiti's daughter. Then you start recognizing Germany was actually Moorish. Then when you go into Iberian history, or what you call European history, you'll find that all the nobles were Moors. That's why a good book for those of you who have not been properly made erudite in the history of Iberia and America. One of the most awarded scholars in the world, named Joel A. Rogers, wrote a book called Nature Knows No Color Line, and started looking at the coats of arms of the real Picts and Moors, or nobles of Iberia or Europe, and she will see that they're all Moors, Aboriginal Moors.
Not no, second shelf. No, down. One more shelf down. Right there. Push back. Look back. The white book standing up.
Wait.
See the white book? Behind that.
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, Nature Knows No Color Line. And you'll find that the jurisprudence that is used today around the world came from you all, and you're not black, you're Moors. Get over it. You know, what you find is that when people, because when you start finding out the truth about Iberia, i.e. Europe, etc., those are noble families of Europe. Your concepts have been all wrong. That's why Noble Drew Ali says your concepts are all wrong. You know, and so when the hybrid Europeans took over Iberia, you know, the concepts are that many of those old castles, etc., in Germany, Scotland, they don't even know that Scot actually means dark.
Well, you got the last king of Scotland, and who played the?
No, they tell you even, you know, like when you mentioned that, Dr. Nayela, they tell you in different ways. But if you're not aware of this history, it doesn't dawn on you that you were the sovereigns or the monarchs that were overthrown. And the monarchies came from the pharaohs. It was the matriarchs. When you really study the history, not from the hybrid perspective that he's told you, those monarchs that were overthrown are really the matriarchs of the Moorish Moabite nation, which came from the ancient pharaohs of Egypt, that you call Egypt. All of them are Berber descent, Berber linguistic groups, Bantu, Mandinka, etc., all over the world. And the sooner you get real about the real politics and have a real comprehension and understanding of the jurisdictional powers of ancient Hukunta that you call Egypt, expand the world, not just on the east side of Amexem, the entire world. When you're looking at Tennessee area, Tennessee, Kentucky area, looking at Lower Egypt, it's a fact. That's the fact. Get over it. You look at those mounds and the pyramids all over the America. All of those are ancient And some of them are even older on this side than they are on that side. So don't look at them as separate. Look at them as just being the land separated by a great earthquake. That's all. Mississippi was built by hand. By hand. It was not a natural river. It flows both ways, according to the seasons. While we build mounds all along it. It's also dealing with the fresh water routes up to the Great Lakes, which are also built for fresh water for the entire Western Maghreb. That's the truth. Get over it. You know, one of the points of reference for conquest for the hybrids is to steal a lot of Moorish history. This is, and the Whiggamore Party is a perfect example. Even the name of the parties, Whig or Moor, they put on wigs to imitate the Moors. They've been stealing your estate for the last couple centuries. Get over it. They've been trading places. So now, we've done enough damage on the planet. It's time to start telling the truth. Start fixing things up. Start learning of your higher self and your lower self. Start moving to the dark side and start moving to the higher self. So your higher planes of life are really the dimensions. They're states of mind. And so when you're coming into fourth and fifth and sixth dimension, it's a consciousness. It's an energy. It's a consciousness and a connection to nature and the operations of reality. Not a place to go, country to be reached. So heaven is a state of mind, the activation of the pineal gland. And as the pineal gland activates, you will enter into what they call more dimensional consciousness. And of course, that's conjoined by the operations of Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter lining up, etc., what they call the activities of the coming again of Jesus or the Son of God, symbolizes anthropomorphically actually the entry of the energies of the Aquarian age and the dying of the priesthood whose spookiness and misrepresentation of religion had its root in the Piscean age. All that means anthropomorphically. So you're dealing with the cosmo, return of Jesus, etc., or justice. There you go. Get used to it.
Now, one of the things I found interesting also when reading this book is where we get the term April Fool.
Yes.
And the fact that when they were running the Moors out of Spain and how they lied to them.
They call that they're running the snakes out of Ireland.
Well, no, when they told
and in Ireland and Spain, keep in mind
when they told them you can go, you're gonna have to leave, but they put them when they put them on the ships and then told them, and they looked back and they saw their homes being burned up,
mostly women and children,
and then they burnt the ships.
Yes.
At the ship, I don't know whether they jumped over the sides or whatever, but they had the people out the ships and they burnt the ships up.
They promised that they would not kill women and the children. It was mostly women and children. And this is during the time of Boabdil.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
Says knowing the Moors were let me see, up to this, okay, on March 31st of the same year, a proclamation was issued formally expelling all Jews from Spain. The next day was April 1st, a day which was to be forever remembered in the traditions and lexicon of our culture. Up to this point, the Moors were conquered, but had not been officially expelled or sanctioned. According to long-standing tradition, on April 1st, 1492, the Spanish executed a diabolical plot against the Moors. Any Moors who remained in Spain at that time had been told that they could return to their home country of Morocco. Knowing the Moors were a suspicious lot, the Spaniards provided sailing vessels and docked them at port. When the Moors saw the vessels, they trusted the Spaniards were not lying and proceeded to take their belongings and families to the ships. As the Moors left their homes behind them, the Spanish set fire to them. The ships either set sail or were burned as well, thus leaving the Moors as the first victims of what became known as April Fool's Day. It has been a celebrated tradition since that time. Although the Moors were completely defeated in Europe, it was a persecution that could only get worse. So, April Fools. We think some of these things are these cute little, just like, where people celebrating Thanksgiving thinking it was something that brings families together, when these things that we're celebrating have been celebrating, we're celebrating our own demise.
Yes. Yes.
And so you keep that energy alive when you celebrate it.
And it's not so much just that, is that they're not aware of what the celebration is because they've been lied to about their own history. And this is back to in the beginning when we open up the treatise and we talk about Napoleonic Wars. When you get into Napoleonic Wars, for those of you who have some scholarship, you recognize that around the world, wherever Napoleon went, he would shoot the noses off of all the historical stone statues to hide or to destroy the Moorish relationship so that they could take claim of being the ancient ones, even ancient Greece. And so you see them start making this common statue of some woman, etc., with a broken arm, etc. And you see that duplication all over the place. And then all the original statues, they shoot their noses off.
I've seen that.
Oh yeah, destroy the face features, even with the Sphinx. And that's all over the world. That's why it's important to understand that in order to study American history, you must know Iberian history or the history of Europe.
There's a question.
They go together. They absolutely go together. But they have been separated in the minds of the people so that you will not find some of this stuff that we're sharing with you today. And of course, this will take you even further into deeper history, including the Moorish Empire in Iberia or Europe. And that's very important for your concepts to get clear on American history, because you can't know American history without knowing Iberian history, because it's absolutely connected. But people have been trained with this idea of what they think foreign is.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're talking American history, it doesn't dawn on them.
We're not Bayesian, so
it's not dawn on them that Europe and America is connected. Politically, absolutely.
It's the same thing for the folks that kind of thought that because they call themselves Protestants, that they're no longer under Catholic influence.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go.
It means we protested, but we're
protesting are protesting Catholics.
Yeah.
And even, with people not knowing those operations, thinking that is a separate religion, when actually it's a subsection of the Catholic. And all it is them fighting among each other.
Right.
That's all. And it was the priesthood, not necessarily people. The priesthood fighting over spoils that they were robbing from Egypt. That's what it is. They're fighting over spoils that they robbed from Asiatic African countries among themselves. And that's how those orders, Protestant, Methodist, Calvinism, and all of those different sects, actually break off of priests among the Catholic order that were fighting amongst each other over spoils, having nothing to do with spiritual development whatsoever. It's all political. That's not a condemnation of people's beliefs in the sense that people look at it, is that they really don't understand that they were political activities and nothing to do with spirituality whatsoever. They just use Jesus as a front. Jesus is more or less a password for political conquest purposes and mental conquest warfare. Totally misrepresented. Unfortunately, but that's true. Hopefully, many of the hybrid European sons and daughters will start telling some of those truths to free not only the mental servitude that many of our people have been suffering, but many of their own have been suffering from for for the last 3 centuries. Because all of us on a large scale are generally out of order because of misinformation. So again, when you're looking at the Constitution for the United States, when you're looking at the hiding of the original 13th Amendment, etc., and the 20 sections, etc., and you'll see also why the members of the Roman Curia and of the Circuit Church and Chancery of the Bar Association, etc., were banned from holding office. Now you'll notice that almost every person, man and women, who are claiming to be congressmen and senators of the United States, etc., are barristers and lawyers. Totally unconstitutional. Now you understand why politically and economically North America and Canada, etc., is in the political shape that they're in right now today. And you'll also know why these continued unending wars are being perpetrated around the world, especially in Asia and Africa. And all of this is still rooted in the Napoleonic Wars. We just give them a different name.
When I think of how how few of them there are that are ruling the many.
That's why it's important for them to burn books.
Right. But again, I always come back to the Dark Crystal.
Oh,
if you have not,
Jim Henson's,
yeah. If you have not seen, I don't know, I know you saw the original, but the remake.
I have the collectors.
Yeah, the remake that came out in 2019, I think it was 2019 or 2018, was Netflix. It's nine episodes. I think it was 9. Anyway, I binged it all because I needed to see the big picture. Sometimes you just need to watch it. And when it concluded, all I could say, there was the Skeksis and the Gelfins. The Skeksis are them, and the Gelfins are us. It was a few Skeksis, right? Symbolically, a few Skeksis that were ruling and sucking the energy and the life force and the essence of the Gelfins, who. When you looked at them, they didn't all look the same.
Multiple stories at the same time.
Yeah, they didn't look exactly the same, but they were the same. They were all the underlings. So they were all the 99%ers.
Consider a higher self and a lower self, right? Consider the hybriding. Consider cannibalism against children, in essence. The vampirism that's been going on for a couple centuries that the masses have not known that even exists. A lot of things that those animated series actually present.
But the point, because I see the comments not only here, but you hear the conflicts that are within us, and we're wondering why we're not further along, and we can't see the fact. Well, some see. The fact of the matter is we're not any further along because we can't help from fighting each other. So if so the schism. So if we're fighting each other, if we're majoring on minors and doing things that undermine in the whole overall, we never. It's one step forward, 2 steps back.
Remember this. Let's go back to in relationship the few ruling the many, right?
Right.
Now you already know, and this is common knowledge. This is not like mystery stuff. It's available to anyone, right? From the hybrid Europeans operations, and from policies taken from the Napoleonic Wars, right? Introduced into the Whigamore Party and demonstrated in the philosophy page of the establishment of the General Education Board. This stuff has never been secret. Never been secret. So let's look at the philosophy page and this is common, of the General Education Board set forth by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates. And you all are familiar with that name, Gates, even to this day, who's trying to stick you with nanoviruses. 1902, philosophy page for the founders of the General Education Board. So how was their plan to dumb the people down to present this conquest of the many by the few, which you see taking place right now, coming from members of the Skull and Bones and Roman Curia and the Circle Church and the Chancery. All these members are members of the Roman Curia. This is their philosophy. In our dreams, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. The present education conventions fade from their minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo, great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply. The task we set before ourselves is a very simple as well as a very beautiful one, to train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are. So we will organize our children and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way, in the homes, in the shops, and on the farm. That's the mission that the General Education Board is structured under the operations of what's called animal